Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another video with Dr. Fletcher and myself talking about Under the Hood, the Heart of CLA. So this was a 4-week series that you're joining us on, or maybe you're just watching this video and you found it not part of the series, but this is the 4th video in a series where we're really looking into the heart of CLA, our brand, our service department, our sales department, and really now ending this series with you. And we're going to be talking all about leadership today. So if you don't know him already, you're meeting him for the first time. This is Dr. David Fletcher. If you're watching, you already know this is a real honor to get to interview you. So
well, it's so much fun for me to be the interviewee because I know, but we on top of all of that, you get to ask the hard questions, and I get a chance to squirm.
Yeah. This is fun. So I know. Let me take a step back. So this is all about leadership, vision, being a visionary. And I know you as a leader in 4 capacities. I don't know if you know that, or
I don't know that.
I didn't really tell you that we were going to go there. But,
okay.
I know you as a leader in your community,
Okay.
right? You led a community as a chiropractor, and you had a practice. You've shown me pictures in the center of your town, literally in the center of your town, and did that for a number of years. I know you as a leader in your family. Have the opportunity to have a
co-leader with Nancy.
Well, I was going to say, you beat me to it. You, a leader, and I have the privilege of knowing Nancy, and we have a great, relationship. And I've got to meet your kids, and amazing leadership between both of you. And I know you as a leader for CLA, right? Leading us every day, and I know you as a leader of the profession, right? Which is that.
Well, it's part of that progression. And it's interesting you bring up the word leadership because, I think for any of us to excel when we're getting into our, vision, mission, I think what you've heard through the course of this, as I was interviewing and working with you on this, is that if we go back to, the brander here, the leadership that I want to talk about today, or at least be interviewed around today, I think we're going to get there, is this idea that without brand, without taking that hard, easy model, without being able to look inward, leadership is somebody else's vision, not your own vision. And so you become this mongrel leader instead of this defined leader.
Absolutely. And so for me, I want to touch on a few areas. So you, there's a couple of things. You're a busy guy. Yeah. I don't know if you're watching, if you understand what I mean when I say busy. I mean, just off the top of my head, you go from, let's see, Canada to Las Vegas, where you are now.
Which is where I am now.
You go from here to Minnesota, to Toronto, to Atlanta, to Los Angeles, to Brisbane, to Auckland, to Bismarck, back, or did I say Bismarck? I get confused, back to Las Vegas, back to Toronto in 18 days. Yeah, in the next 18 days, right? Yeah. So that's insane. You purchased the company in 2011. It was somebody else's company for 21 years-ish, right? And had a completely different leader and vision and path that it was on. You picked up in buying the company other people's stories, other people's history, a company that you had to then make your own, right? You have had other, you maintain development and operations and brand, and you're a busy guy. I need to know what's motivated you to really keep going in this direction.
Well, I think that when you hear that schedule, and it's kind of like, oh, really?
From somebody who's like afraid of flying.
It's really almost an honor to be able to be reaching out, and that's what leadership is that you accept the responsibility and accept the mantle of saying that the vision that you're in is really a calling. And so I had the honor of working in the first, 17 of those years of working with the founders of CLA. I was writing the clinical protocols with a couple of amazing doctors. It probably wasn't 17 years, but felt like it was a long time anyways. That, when we do the math and look backwards, I had this amazing opportunity to learn leadership skills where I didn't have them. I learned how to lead from the front of a stage. I learned how to lead, in a larger group. I learned how to be part of a bigger chiropractic community, as you were describing it. And so when it came time to take on the reins of CLA, I was sort of, Galilean is sort of standing on the greatness of the shoulders of others. But, there's a problem with that is because you inherit a lot of what their vision was.
Yeah.
And so part of the early days of getting into the rhythm of being the leader as you see CLA now was accepting that my vision was worthy. And I think that's so important for any of you who are, maybe not necessarily driven by leadership. And sometimes I described it as this mongrel leadership. Sometimes you just accept what's there and you kind of go, well, I saw this guy doing it or this woman doing it, and I think I'm going to be that type of leader. You have to look inward. And that's what you were teaching us in your branding session, is that it really all comes from your core. And leadership is, and I've said this many times, and I do say it all the time, is that there's a DNA of leadership. It's not something that you have to learn. It's more something you have to express. And so there's this leadership gene that sits in yourself, Lisa Marie, and myself, and anybody on the planet. And you have to place yourself in those opportunistic places to allow that gene to express itself. But you have to be wise to when the calling is happening. In other words, that there's these moments of where you get challenged in your leadership. And my challenge when we took on CLA was, there were many challenges that were going on, but we sort of said, okay, one by one, we're going to do it. But when we got the idea that we had an influence that would be worldwide, when we got a chance to say that we were not leading ourselves for our own, outcome, but we were leading to a higher order, a higher presence within chiropractic, that's when that fourth level of leadership, which is leadership in the profession, really started to show up. It was like, oh, people do listen to what we say, partly because of the brand, but partly because I accepted a leadership role.
And our name.
Yeah, and our name. Yeah, of course, our name. Right? Doesn't hurt.
Well, it's kind of been the ongoing, not joke, but we're like, we are the Chiropractic Leadership Alliance, right? Yeah. We are an alliance of leaders, and that's kind of been exciting.
Well, I've always said this in either family or otherwise, is that what you bait your hook with is what you catch. And what I mean by that is that if you have this sense that you want leadership as your driving force, driven by purpose and everything else, but you exemplify leadership, you then start to surround yourself with people that are searching for leadership or are leaders themselves. That's the alliance that I'm talking about. That's the exciting part of it. So look, this is an under the hood experience.
Yeah.
So a takeaway, and goodness gracious, I miss practice, but I was able to step into this form of leadership. But if you're sitting there in your practice and wondering what next steps are to attain leadership, it's look for where the calling is happening. Look for where there's that storyline. Let me give an example, if I may.
Yeah.
There's a really fractured story of chiropractic going around these days. It's probably as bad as I've seen it in my many years of practice, where there's this schism between those that think that chiropractic should be relegated to the subspecialty of medicine, and those of us who believe that it's really a grand profession that allows people's lives, not spines, simply to change. And I know that people who are listening to this are mostly in that latter experience, which is, seeing and showing the greatness. And that's who CLA really stands for in its leadership. When somebody confronts you, whether it's a patient or whether it's a conversation in there, and you get a chance to talk about the bigness and the greatness of chiropractic, take it up. That's your leadership moment. That's the moment. And when, in your political world, and there's this idea of where people are trying to ram a very narrow perspective of chiropractic down your throat, legislatively or otherwise, stand up. That's what leaders do.
It makes me think of this aspect of your personality most people don't know.
Oh no.
You may know from the stage, or if you've had a chance to really talk to you, I'm sure people will say you're a great storyteller. You're a great, you just have this personality and charisma about you that I don't see in a lot of people. But one of my favorite lines you always say is, you're a doctor of chiropractic. So we get, in any world, in any industry, people who are whiny, right? And I don't like whiny people, but you really don't like whiny. But you always say, what do you mean you don't know? Can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I think that, and this is one of the mysteries I have, is that, you're all powerful to get invited in to go to school in chiropractic. It's an honor to be accepted. You have to, go through a number of hurdles to get into school. And the level of learning and the level of experience you have to do to get out of it is great. And yet confronted with this almost on the day of graduation, there's this sense that they forget that they were groomed to be leaders. and they walk into a business environment. Granted, it's a little bit different than what they were, right? I mean, it's real world stuff. They have to talk to people, not colleagues and students. They collapse and they forget that they were born to be leaders by being selected to go into this. So it's not that I don't suffer fools lightly. I mean, obviously there's stuff nobody likes to tolerate, but the story is you are a leader by the nature of the choices that you've made to get to this point where people can either call you a doctor, a chiropractor, or otherwise. Step up.
You're a leader whether you realize and acknowledge you are one or not, just by simply having been through the process and becoming a chiropractor.
What percent of humans on this planet, 7 billion plus people on this planet, what percentage of those have the skills that you have, let alone the opportunities you have? I mean, I'm going to talk about a very small percentage of 1%. And so that's what leadership really means is accepting the responsibility. During the course of this journey, and the leaders who were teaching me and mentoring me, they put us in front of people like Nathaniel Brandon, who introduced the whole principle of self-esteem and self-responsibility. And leaders accept self-responsibility. Leaders understand that. And Nathaniel used to do this exercise. He said, okay, I want everybody to look over their left shoulder. I'll look over my right just to do it. And you look over your right or left shoulder. And he'd then look at you and he'd say, did you see the cavalry coming? And of course, that sort of is a message to say, do you see anybody coming to save you? Because the reality is it stops and starts here in you. That's leadership. And I think that the lesson that I've learned, look, I don't want to answer bad emails. I don't want to answer and, sit in aluminum tubes to go over it. That's the self-responsible experience. When you are clear on your vision and mission, you do the things that matter to get you to where you want to go. And the last thing I'll say is that the calling, or this thing that drives you, has to be bigger than you yourself. It's family. It's working in an environment where it matters that you and I know each other and you and I share each other. We have this almost familial relationship now because I allowed, in a leadership way, our world to share with the people that had these aligned values. And, we do that with each of our team members. You've had a chance to see Jamie, and you've had a chance to see Brock. And you can see that, people that stay with us for 29 years are people that embrace leadership in their lives.
Absolutely. What would you say to the chiropractor watching that keeps looking for the calling, or keeps looking for that sign that they're in a leadership role? And here's what I mean by that. I've been in chiropractic now for a number of years, and I've heard struggling chiropractors that have graduated with as much of an honor as it is, they struggle with that identity of being a leader. So they go, my waiting room's not full. I've got appointments being canceled. And they're getting that headspace of, I'm failing in practice. They've hit a wall. Maybe they're looking to buy an insight because they think it's going to be right? Or maybe it's something else that they're being sold at a chiropractic conference or something. What do you tell that chiropractor who's just not recognizing that, they're in that leadership role and they have to seek it out?
Well, I think that you've heard this in this Under the Hood session, to look inward, for yourself. But here's the second step, is align yourself with those with like-mindedness who are going to support you. They may challenge you, but they're going to support you. Many people embrace coaching, and they should. Being well coached means that you've chosen a community that's going to align with your values, and you're going to keep, accountability coming on and going. One of the great things about CLA is that it literally is this tribe. It's a community of like-minded people. I mean, we have thousands of doctors who continuously connect up with us through what's called the Insight Forum. So when you're a member of CLA, it's what #Kairos of CLA.
Yeah. At
Kairos of CLA, you get a chance. Listen, if you haven't chosen a coaching, we can give you ideas. We work with some of the best coaching relationships in the world, and we're happy to share you and share your messages with other coaches so that they can take on their responsibilities, but in a very, very, I use the term agnostic way, where you don't have to feel threatened. There's this relationship that CLA has had with chiropractic and with these we'll call them clients, but they're really almost like extended family members, of where we believe in you so much that we want you to know that there's things that we will do to help support you, whether it's teaching you how to communicate the story of chiropractic through the insight, whether it's a matter of helping you understand that when we have these gatherings like Total Solution, that you're invited. to coming in. I mean, Total Solution has graduated, get this, 7,200 participants over the course of its time, which is really a remarkable thing. It's a 3.5-day program. So to just get there, it's a sense that they chose leadership. So they should keep an eye on when Total Solution is coming up, because it's this invitation to be part of a leadership movement. Heck, all you'd have to do is just go to TS, Total Solution TS, and it's on this mountain up in Colorado. And part of it is doing this executive high ropes course, which is nothing to do with chiropractic and everything to do with chiropractic, because it does exactly what I was talking about, is that you have to expose your leadership gene, and sometimes it's in the crucible. Sometimes you have to, turn the heat up and get squeezed a little bit to see what comes out. And that's where I think the question is align yourself, but push yourself.
What I really heard there too, and if you're watching and you're going, but I'm not making enough money to buy an insight, or I'm not making enough money to hire a coach, or there are so many free resources and relationships you can leverage. There's a story that you tell when you first first got into practice, where you basically went out, knocked on some doors, and created your own group, and basically made it happen. Right?
Well, the story that I think many people know of us is that we, it was like almost like the idea that there was no money and no home to begin this, but I was a chiropractor and I had to start somewhere. And it was in the earliest of days, and I don't recommend you do this now. In fact, probably get thrown in jail if you did. But the reality is that I opened up in a hotel room. And it was in a smaller town. There was nowhere to rent, but I had nowhere to go. And so we didn't do box on the wall, but we did as good a job as you could in a hotel room. And on Tuesday and Thursday nights, we would invite people to come and get adjusted. And that was, the branding that we talked about. We couldn't offer anything more than that, but we could offer great service at that moment to the best we could, and people tolerated it. And before we could actually open the doors for our practice, which were, a number of months later when a space opened up, we had a running practice. So I wouldn't call it a practice, but it was a running number of patients that wanted to be part of this thing called leadership.
Well, you had the vision.
I did, yeah.
And long before it happened, I say this all the time in branding to clients, but this is exactly what you did, is that you played the part.
Yeah.
There was a role that you were a chiropractor. And I always say this, if you tell people you're something, they have no reason to not believe you, right? So even if you don't believe it, you're a chiropractor.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, right? But not even fake it, but like own it till you make it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a chiropractor. If I went and told somebody that, in Las Vegas, like, you don't even have to be a licensed midwife to be a midwife. You just be like, I'm a midwife, right? It's kind of actually very scary.
It's kind of scary,
but it's true, and people will believe you. And it's the same thing. If I'm a brand expert. Okay, well, of course you've got to back it up, and that's exactly what you did. You offered amazing service and great adjustments, and you backed it up, and it allowed you to be successful. But you had a vision, and you do that every day. You do it at CLA. And that's kind of where I want to take this next part, if you don't mind. And we've been working really hard to make a vision that you and Nancy have brought to the table that's going to massively impact the future of chiropractic. And I believe that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that vision and what people can expect from CLA and where you think the profession is going in 2019?
Well, and thank you. Look, I think that we as colleagues and as professionals out there recognize that we have to take a stand somewhere. And the one thing that people think of chiropractic of and know chiropractic as is a drugless approach to addressing spinal-related nerve tension issues. Yeah, there it is. And so the insight is this remarkable interface, if you would, linking today's technologies with these timeless principles of healing, which means that the person in front of you, that body, that mind, heals spontaneously when there's less interference. And that's the whole idea why chiropractic exists. And so our vision has really been, from the time I took this company over, to make it easier and easier and easier to tell the story, and most importantly, to deliver the goods. And so I was attracted. I became an insight user when we were very busy in practice. And it was one of those where you kind of went, well, what's the point of putting one more layer of change in? And I saw the elegance of being able to tell my story easier and more completely through something that was an objective third party, which indeed in this case was an X-ray, looked at the function. Now, we still use X-ray all the time. This isn't about an either or. This was the idea of saying, we're bigger and better. And so coming in 2019 and going forward from here is this idea that we've been able to look at the thousands of offices that we have. We're looking and we've harnessed the power of the cloud-based technologies and computing. We have harnessed the power of wireless technologies, so that finally, for the first time within chiropractic, there's a technology that supports you in telling your story, which is current to today's levels of technologies and will continue to evolve in today's levels of technologies, so that you as a chiropractor can be incredibly proud looking at valid, reliable, complete data sets that are reportable to patients. Unbelievable reports that are self-interpretive, that allow you, through using amazing interfaces like Apple, like PC, like Mac OS, to go out and tell your story, whether it's in your office, in screenings, or otherwise. So we've used the last, 7 years in here to sequentially go through changing over a good product to become an essentially great product.
Absolutely. I mean, and it was a very vague and good answer in the sense that we're not really telling you what's coming, but there is a vision that we've taken this next iteration, this next generation of insight, if you will, that'll be released in the next few months, that really is going to change. And the exciting part is it's going to work and function with your technologies as you know them now. We've just made it easier, faster, prettier, and more relatable to patients. I think that's such a key word, relatable. One of the things that Jamie mentioned in her interview was being able to speak in terms that your patients could understand. We really, and I've always said this to you as a patient of yours, I'm blown away with how you're able to explain chiropractic to me every time, every adjustment. It's incredible. And I think that taking your voice and the experience you had in practice, speaking to patients, and all of the success you had, and putting that into a system that can understand it and give it to thousands of chiropractors that are using your technology, and by them, millions of patients, is pretty remarkable.
It's always been my dream, and it wasn't so much to try and have this presence. It's more or less to be an integrator of a great message to many more people. Listen, one thing that's unwavering in my life and Nancy's life and in the life of our family, including CLA, is that we don't struggle with the idea that chiropractic works and is essential. It's not necessary, it's essential. And as a result of that leadership experience is really something that isn't a very hard vision to enact upon, because we do it every day. And so if we can build this technology to be that interface so that it makes it easier and easier and easier for you, and it gives you all the strength and commitment for your team members and for yourself to have that level of confidence that you might have been missing, because you have to express leadership through what you deliver. And delivering this is something that technology makes so much easier these days. These are amazing, and they should never go away. And X-ray is amazing, and it should never go away. But the one thing that is missing many times is looking deeper into the functioning nervous system. And that was one of the triggers that made my practice, even though it was a grand practice at the time, when we put the insight in play, it became that next evolution. And when you put the insight in play now, in this new iteration of ease of use and everything else, I really see 2019 as that seminal tipping point of where chiropractic, interfaces with the joy of technology as it was designed to be joyful. And we get the bigger outcomes with more and more people using our services.
Yes. I don't even know what to say other than, if you are not that familiar with CLA and you're watching this video, or you're a client of CLA, Dr. Fletcher and Nancy have put together an amazing, amazing suite of innovation for 2019 and beyond. I'm honored to be a part of the team in such a high capacity and be able to help bring that brand to the world. If you have a chance to see Dr. Fletcher speak, if you have a chance to go to our website, www.insightcla.com or subluxation.com, there are so many resources for free that you can access, talking about, if you don't have a lot of money or time right now to invest in yourself, you can do it for free. There's so many resources on our website, blogs, white papers, case studies, you name it. Yeah. Our Facebook group, facebook.com/Chiros of CLA, is a great way to stay connected. There's Facebook Lives every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We have, if you are a member, a free Facebook group that's private, closed to members. There's other ways you can connect with us. And we just really, this is an invitation. It's not even, you're the king of invitational practice, but
yeah, it is.
it's a personal invitation from us to you to please join our family. It's a really great place to be, especially if you're looking to future-proof your practice in 2019.
Well, thank you for inviting me to these storylines. I mean, obviously, we can talk forever. And, you know, one of the things that I get a chance to do is work with amazing people, as you've seen, as you looked under the hood for our practice, which is called CLA. And I hope you've gained a few insights, pardon the pun, but not really, into what makes a great company even greater. It's great vision, it's great service, it's great sales, it's great branding, it's great everything. And so as greatness loads and we start to see this next iteration coming out, we'd love to be part of your life, and we'd love you to be part of our life. So it's a mix made in heaven. So I'm looking forward to what happens in the next short while.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you to go, we've put together something really exciting. Go to www.insightcla.com/heart of CLA. And you're going to be able to download basically the highlights of the 4-week series. So if you're somebody who likes to read and get some of the tools in paper, plus there's 2 bonus interviews, which I'm not going to share with you now, but you'll find all the details on our
website. I didn't know that either. Leadership is also about not knowing everything.
Yeah. Gotcha. But yeah, go there and you'll be able to download a great resource that you could enact today.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you soon.